Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Hurricane Watch team is here with a tropical weather update. We're going to go over all the storms and another storm that could be impacting Australia later in the week into next week. Let's get right into this tropical weather update. So we're going to start off by talking about Tropical Cyclone Vince. It is weakening at 95 knots. As you can see, it is going to quickly weaken. In about 3 days, it'll be gone. It'll be gone. In about 3 days, it'll be a weak tropical. Wind speeds will be the equivalent of a weak tropical storm to a tropical depression. By that point, the jet stream would have just completely ripped it to shreds, and it would have been completely ripped apart. It would have been gone. It won't be impacting land. Here is the tropical. There's a forecast track. There's Mauritius over there. It's going to be moving away as it interacts with the jet stream. The wind field will rapidly expand. This is the tropical storm force wind field. So as you can see, by that time, the tropical storm force wind field will expand, and it will be weakening pretty quickly by that point. So you can see it did get pretty strong, as you can see, about 130, 135 knots. So we're talking 150, 155 miles an hour at its peak. I'm going to go through all these systems, talk a little bit about what all these storms are going to do. Here is Talia. Again, it is also weakening. It is tropical storm at only about 50 miles per hour. It does look like it is going to re-strengthen. Again, as you can see, tropical depression, tropical storm, hurricane, category 2, weakened, back into tropical storm, and then it looks like it's going to re-intensify, perhaps into a hurricane there, up to 70 knots, about 80 miles an hour, so we do expect to see some more intensification, but after that, once it begins weakening again, that's it, it's over. The storm is going to weaken for good. Taking a look at the forecast intensity guidance, it is expected to intensify up into tropical storm status and then weaken. The storm is making its way, not going to be impacting land or anything, which is good. 95P here right off the east coast of Australia. It's just kind of not really going anywhere. It isn't really even expected to intensify. It doesn't even have, it's not going to intensify into anything. It's just a mess. It's just a blob of energy. Very good convection though. Very deep burst of convection right there, as you can see. Look at that. Huge plume, or huge burst of convection there. A little intensification, but there does appear to be quite a bit of wind shear with this, within the storm. Therefore, there's not expected to organize and intensify into anything significant. However, the same cannot be said about Tropical Depression 96S. Here it is at 997 millibars. This is the storm I really mainly want to talk about today because of some of the models are showing it could be intensified into a pretty significant storm. That is its location. A look at these water temperatures. This right here, right off the coast, that's 90 degrees. All of this is 30 degrees. Yeah. The water is really, really hot right here along the northern and northwestern coasts of Australia. As it begins to move into that area, it's going to rapidly intensify. Now, one model, which is the HAFS A model, freaking blows it up into insane, like 100. Actually, the model I saw, we'll look at that in a moment, blows it up into like category freaking. I even called it a category 6. It showed like over 200 knots. It was ridiculous. But I do think this is going to take advantage of that warm water. It's going to intensify. However, I do not believe it will become a Category 5. A Category 3 is most likely in terms of reasonable intensity with the system. Let's look at the forecast models. Well, let's go tropical temperatures. This will be a little bit easier for me to look at here. Hurricane. Just going to go through all of these. Again, we really mainly want to focus on this system as it is expected to intensify and then make landfall there in northern Australia. So it does look like it does get pretty strong there. 939 millibars. We get an eye wall there. We get a pretty intense system. Let's take a look here at the winds here at the low levels. So again, we do get about 112. If it reaches 115 knots, we're looking at about 130 mile per hour. Category 4. 114, 112, 105, 93 knots. So it does look like this storm will intensify quite a bit, and this will be quite a strong storm, but relatively small, relatively compact, not a super big or wide storm. But it looks like even by tomorrow, in 2 days, I should say, day and a half to 2 days, really when we think the storm is really going to take off, and that's when the rapid intensification will be underway. And from there up into just a little bit before landfall is where it will be at its strongest. I believe about 130 miles per hour is certainly a possibility, for sure. This is the H-Wharf parent. It as well also shows it also becoming pretty intense as well. At almost 110 knots, so possibly 120 mile per hour hurricane cyclone, is expected with this model. And again, it's very, very small, very, very compact, which means there can be big changes. The smaller and tighter that core is, it can rapidly intensify and also quickly go down, as we saw there with a good example was Hurricane Maria. A very compact storm. Hurricane Dorian as well. Very compact, very small, but the storm really ramped up before Dorian made landfall and impacted the Bahamas. And that's something we could also see with this storm with Australia. It could really ramp up really quickly before it makes landfall. So that's something we want to monitor and watch. I believe it's the HAFS A, which has this thing just explode. Again, here we are at 0 hours. We don't have anything. Alright? It takes about 1.5 to 2 days for this storm to really organize until it creates some sort of until it begins to create a core and wrap around the center of the storm. Once it does that, that's when we're expected to see the storm really intensify and move close to the coast, and we could see that rapid intensification very, very quickly. Literally. Let's go. Okay, here's 42 hours. Here's 48 hours. Here is 2 days from now. Here is 2.5 days. So by the end of that day, it will have gone from literally like this to like this. And that will only it will only increase. There's 96 knots, 160 knots, 130 knots, 160 knots. Now again, this is shooting it way over the top. It's an outlier. I do not expect us to see something like this, a 204 knot typhoon, cyclone, or hurricane, whatever you want to call it, 204 knot cyclone impacting Australia. That is not going to happen. It's just one of the models. This model always seems to overestimate the intensity of these storms. So just because one model says one thing is going to happen does not mean that it's set in stone. You kind of need to look at all the models, get an average, and that average really shows a strong Category 2 to possibly a Category 3 hurricane is most likely with this system. Freaking 876 millibar. It even shows 892, 160. It's not going to happen. It's just not. It's just unrealistic. But it is interesting to see in the modeling, I will say. 876s. 876, 875.8. Just friggin' ridiculous. Look at that. Just absolute monster if that were to develop. Complete catastrophe. This is also showing 183 knots. Again, not gonna happen. Looks like we do get landfall there, right about there, 146 knots. Category 5 with this model showing, and then it goes and land, and there'll be a lot of heavy rain right along where this makes landfall. Again, this is not going to be, again, I want to make this clear, this will not become a Category 5. Category 3, Category 2 is likely, even a Category 4 is possible, not particularly likely, but it's certainly Category 2 to perhaps a Category 3. And then let's take a look at the GFS with 96S. 12 hours out, nothing. 2 days from now, really nothing. There it is approaching the coast at 980 millibars. And again, it really looks like this system is just going to ramp up. So even a day and a half, and it may only seem like a moderately strong tropical storm. It's going to make landfall in a few days. It's not going to, you'll be surprised how quickly some of these storms can ramp up. There it is at peak at 958 millibars, 80 knots. So obviously not as strong as some of the other models are showing, but we're looking 90 to 100 miles an hour. Again, that's a Category 2 hurricane right there. Anything above 96 miles an hour is the beginning of Category 2 status. So again, this definitely showing that we could see something with this system, and that's really what I want to just sort of say, is that the development of this storm isn't particularly is going to take time, but as the storm intensifies over the next several days, and it taps into some of those warmer waters, higher heat content in the oceans, which I kind of want to talk a little bit about that now as well. We take a look at the ocean heat content. We're looking right in this area, we're looking 150 plus. Right where the storm looks like it's going to go right through here, I think. Right in this area, we're looking at 150 plus kilojoules of energy per what looks like cubic centimeter? Excuse me, square centimeter? God, it's an ungodly large amount of energy. So right now, where it's at in this area, its average energy is 113,000 joules of energy per square centimeter. It is a frig ton of energy. It is ridiculous, the amount of energy that this storm is tapping into right now. I mean, that literally, we're talking literally 60, 70 meters. You go down to about, you even go down to about almost 40 meters, and you're still looking at 29, 30 degrees Celsius. So the surface temperature of even 30 degrees goes down deep. But when you go down to 26 Celsius, we're talking nearly 80 meters below the surface. So the water goes down to the warm water goes down to a depth, which is what tropical cyclone heat potential is. It is how far the 26 degree isotherm goes below the surface. If it's very shallow, it's going to mix with a lot of cold water, and that cold water is going to upwell to the surface, and it's going to pretty much kill the storm. I mean, there's cold water at the surface, and the storm's not going to have that warm water that it needs, and it's going to just fall apart. You'll see this when we talk about storms, and we'll look at the sea surface temperatures after a storm moves through like the Gulf of Mexico or through the Atlantic or whatever it may be, and then you'll see that the water temperatures will be much cooler than before, and there'll be a little bit path of an area where the storm went through, where the water will be cooler because it did all that upwelling, all those waves. Very, very interesting. But that's pretty much it. We're just gonna quickly Actually, looks like there's some rotation with this storm already. Maybe that's just my mind, but that looks like that's rotating there at the last little bit. But that's really going to be it for today, guys. I just wanted to give this quick update. Thank you so much for watching. As always, we have all our links in the description below. Discord, Patreon. We're on Blue Sky now. We're going to be going on Instagram. We are on Twitter, but we don't really like Twitter. We're not going to be there for much longer. We're going to Blue Sky now. But that's me for today, guys. Discord's in the description as well. Stay safe out there. And the last thing I want to say is if you want to donate $1 a month to the Hurricane Watch team, you can through our Patreon page. If you would like to support us, that would help us fund some of the stuff that we are spending money on here. As always, thank you so much. Stay safe. As always, this has been the Hurricane Watch team, your source for cyclone information. Peace out.